Good morning. In this class, we're going to practice forward bending, but from standing position. So forward bending is a little bit difficult for people because maybe of tight hamstrings or tightness in the back. So I'm going to go through some standing poses, which are beginner standing poses, to help you get more acquainted, understand the actions, and find out maybe where you need to work a little bit more.
Before we get started, if you want to learn the basics of Iyengar Yoga,
I've designed a new course, Foundational Iyengar Yoga. This course is for you if you're a beginner, if you've been practicing for a while and you just want to deepen your understanding, or if you're a teacher and you would like to be more inspired, go back to the basics. So it's a 6-week course, 18 different classes, and you'll be able to go through at your own pace.
You can find more details in the description box below.
So to start out with, we're going to use a bolster. So you're going to use the bolster in a way that you can feel the length from the front body. When we go into forward bending, we're bending from the hip socket, and oftentimes the front body is shortening. So here, just to have you get an idea of creating more length in the body, the front body and the back body, we'll just come over this bolster. You can bring it all the way up to your pelvis, so between the legs, and then lay over it. Here you're going to find the abdomen and the rib cage. Often the rib cage moves down, and that's when the back starts to round. So here you're lengthening the rib cage, and then you're going to lie completely over that bolster, and you can just bring your arms forward so they can rest on the blocks and the forehead onto the bolster. So that's not going to be that comfortable, so we're going to use a blanket. You can take your blanket and fold the blanket so that you'll bring your forehead onto the blanket and your nose won't be pushed down, and this way you can breathe, which is a good thing. So lengthening again, bring the forehead onto that blanket. Extend the arms, so have the blocks as high as you need. If you're up a little bit higher and you need higher blocks, then take more height for your head. But here's the medium height. So you're coming down. You want your whole lower back to spread. You want the weight of the hips to move back. Feel the feet on the floor. And with the hands, you can press into the block. So have them the right distance so that you can press and lengthen the hips back. And then once you're here, start to feel the abdomen on that bolster. So if you didn't adjust and you're like this, front ribs are moving toward the pelvis, the back is rounding, then you need to lift up, move the abdomen, move the front ribs, and then in this position, just observe how the abdomen is touching the bolster. So if the abdomen is pressing into the bolster, the abdomen is hanging. Here, the abdomen's not able to hang because the bolster's there, so you can feel that you want to have the abdomen moving into the body, so it's not popping out. All right, so the navel in and up, and the bolster just gives you that sensitivity there. And then with the breath, widen through the back body, lengthen through the armpit area, up through the arms, and just breathe into that. As you exhale, deflate the abdomen. Observe your breath. In our forward bending practice, it's a practice of releasing and surrendering. So it's a lot of quiet time. So the breath becomes more passive, quieter, softer. Stay for a few more breaths, just observing the abdomen, observe the lower back, observe that passive state. All right, and then we're going to come up out of that. Just wanted to give you a feel of the length through the front body. So when we're going into forward bends, we're either in a seated position or we're in a standing position. We could be upside down as well. So you're bending from the hip socket. You're bending from here. And if you have tight hamstrings, the hamstrings will either start to give you some pain, the back will go. So how do you counteract that? So just so you have a little bit of anatomy here, your hamstrings, 3 muscles on the backs of the thighs. They connect on the inner and outer knee and also on the sitting bone area, the ischial tuberosity. So that bone is your sitting bone. That's where the tendons, ligaments connect to the muscles, to the inner knee. So if when you're going into a forward bend, I'm just going to use these blocks. You can start with your knees bent. So stand in Utkatasana, bring your hands right at the front groin, press the fingers in. This is the groin area that connects the pelvis and the thigh. Let your knees be bent and keep that same length that you had over the bolster. All right, so now you're going to use the blocks, and knees are bent right now. You're going to think about that hamstring muscle and where it inserts on the inner knee and the outer knee. And you're going to slowly kind of micro move, lifting up through the backs of the thighs, moving the front thigh back. So just being aware of that. So not just straightening the knees. Sometimes people that just straighten the knees, they lock the knee, they hyperextend. So you too will need to do that, work with that micro bending, because you want to be aware that you're not locking the knee, that you're not hyperextending. For those with tight hamstrings, you want to slowly lengthen, and then lengthen a little bit more, straightening the knees a little bit more, and then straightening fully. And you're going to look forward. Crown of the head is moving forward. All right? So that's what's happening in the backs of the legs. Now we're going to get a chair. All right, so I have my chair. I'm going to take the blanket, just for comfort. You don't have to have a blanket, but I'll put this here because some of you may feel that you need that. And I'm leaning the chair back. So this is just going to demonstrate where the head of the femur bone is, where we were bending forward before. So this is going to press against the thighs. I have my feet hips width apart, and as I come down, I just adjust the chair. If you're super tall, you can bring your chair on blocks to raise it up. Here, this is about the right height for me, and I'm going to press the chair back, so that moves my thighs back, and then I can take the head and arms to rest on the chair. You can also take the head on the chair and extend the arms. Now, I have my hips way back. I can feel I'm on the heels more because that chair is pressing the thighs back. So I want to continue to press the thigh back, but bring more weight onto the front of the foot. As I do that, I can feel more length coming through the back of the leg. So press the heel down, lengthen the calf, and lift up through the back of the thigh. If you need to bend the knees a little bit, do that little micro movement again. Slowly let the length come, breathe into it, and then start to straighten a little bit more. Stay there, breathe, and then finally lengthening. Kneecaps are lifted. So you're opening the front of the knee and the back of the knee. Front of the knee is lifting, the back of the knee is opening. Okay, now we're going to come to the wall. And I just demonstrate what's happening in the back of the leg, what's happening in the front of the leg. So you use the wall to feel where the hips are in space. Because you're tilting the pelvis, essentially. When you're standing, you have to tilt the pelvis to go forward. So here, using the wall, feet hips distance apart, I'm going to take my hands on the backs of the thighs, lift the backs of the thighs so I can feel the sitting bones. So I'm lifting the sitting bones up, and I'm coming forward. So do that a couple times. I'm going to take these blocks just so I can lengthen the arms. So again, hands on the sitting bones, lift up, tilting the pelvis. So the backs of the thighs are lifting up into that insertion point, and also lengthening and moving the inner knee back, outer knee back, which connect with the other connection point. And then take your arms forward. Press your hands into the block and get that same extension you had in forward Virasana over the bolster. Now observe your abdomen. Deflate the abdomen, navel moving back toward the lower back. Keep your head between the arms. And press the heels down strongly as you lift up through the backs of the legs. Here you can lift the toes, and as you lift the toes, tighten the kneecaps, lift the kneecaps up. Stay there for a few breaths. Again, if you need to micro bend the knees, you can bend the knee and then slightly straighten. And then again, you can feel as you straighten, you can feel the backs of the buttock lifting up. You can feel the backs of the thighs lifting up on the wall. So using the wall to feel that movement, any amount. Okay, and coming out. Now we're going to do a pose that brings some relief, will neutralize the hamstring. So you lean against the wall, and as you bend the knees now, the hamstring's no longer pulling. The quadriceps are engaged. So you tighten the quadriceps, move the hips back toward the wall, and the hamstring now is feeling like it's relaxing a little bit. So it's moving toward the center. And then bring your arms up, reach the arms up, releasing down. Keep the feet pressing into the floor. And with that press of the feet, draw the knees back toward the hips. And you can feel that levelness of the pelvis, left side, right side. And then inhale, slide up. And now you're going to come away from the wall. And you can walk your hands forward. Walk your blocks forward. So from here, keep your hips wide, bring your arms up. Ardha Uttanasana, like you were with the bolster. Walk forward. Remember the hips at the wall, lifting the backs of the thighs, tilting the pelvis, creating that depth in the front groin, abdomen moving back, and then walk your arms forward and lengthen. So get that extension, that openness, as you move the thighs back. So the thighs are pressing back, the backs of the thighs are lifting, inner knees are moving back toward the wall, outer knees, find your calf muscle, press it down into the heels. As you press the heels, lift up through the backs of the legs. And then bring your hands underneath your shoulders. Look up. So the crown of the head is moving toward the wall in front of you, toward me. Move your thigh back. And now, if you don't need the blocks that high, of course you can take the blocks lower. You can either also bring the fingertips on the floor. So depending on your body condition, you can take one of those. So now you can take the block back further. Press your hands into the block. And as you press, thighs move back, hips move back, side trunk moves forward. So you're still working, before we go into the full forward bend, you're still working on that length, getting from the pubic bone to the navel to the chest. So taking the hands back, press into the hands, keep the arms straight, and as you press into the blocks, lengthen forward. Keep the weight on the front of the foot and the back of the foot. Press the heel down, lift the thighs up. And then bring your hands onto your hips. Okay? And now we're going to do Padangusthasana. So you may need a strap for this, so get your strap ready. Okay, so you have your strap. Before we go into this, just bring your feet closer together. We're going to go into that Utkatasana action again. Bend the knees so that hamstring is relaxed, more relaxed. Drop your hips, extend your arms, and bring the arms up. So stay and breathe. Press into the heels, drop the hips, press the knees, lift the chest away from the floor. Drop your shoulders, shoulder blades moving down. Get that same length through the side trunk, right up through the fingertips. Inhale, come up, and bring your hands down. Okay, so Padangusthasana is where you take the toes. So if you can take your toes, you're bending forward, and you're holding on with your index finger and your third finger. So you can start with the knees bent, reach down, put the fingers under there. If you can straighten your legs, then we'll come into this straight position with the legs and with the arms. If when you do that, the back starts to round and you lose some of the length in the front body, you can just take your strap, bring it under the big toes, and then hold onto the strap and come up until you feel you can straighten the legs and you can lengthen the back. So if I'm holding down here like this, then that's not going to be a very good tool for me. So I'm pressing the toes down, pulling with that strap until I can get that awareness in the back body. Same thing, elbows are straight, inner knees move back, lift up through the backs of the thighs, and then bend your elbows, release down. If you have your hands underneath your toes, you'll bend the elbows, release the head down any amount, and then shift your weight. So you can feel your weights on your heels. Move your weight forward so that you're on the mounds of the toes as well. And now observe your abdomen. Release the abdomen back, broaden through the lower back. Inhale, come up. Bring your hands onto your hips and come up. So bring your feet together now. And you're going to come down into a squat, which will also give you a little neutrality in your hamstrings. And then inhale, come up, and bring your hands down. So now we're going to go down again, Padangusthasana, but this time you're going to bring your feet together. So coming forward, hinging at the hips, lengthening, taking those blocks if you need them, just to be here on the floor to lengthen. And then take the strap or take the toes. First, straighten up so that when you pull, you can feel that part of the back that wants to round. Move that in. It's about where middle back, underneath the shoulder blades. So you're pulling with the arms to get that awareness there and lengthen through the front body. And then you'll bend your elbows. You can take your heels apart a little bit. It'll give you a little bit more balance. And then coming forward, lengthening. So not just coming down, rounding the back, but lengthening. Keep the bend of the elbows to connect the elbow to the shoulder, and that then connects to the upper back, which you can start to release down into. So stay there, breathe. Again, you can do those micro movements. So not completely straightening the leg at first, but just allowing the hamstrings to lengthen, and then a little bit more, and then a little bit more. So moving at your own pace. Okay? And then come up. Okay, so the final pose will go into Prasarita Padottanasana, which is also a forward bend. And I'm going to, you can practice on your mat, but I'm going to move the mat to the wall, just so that you can see the direction of the legs. So when we're moving in forward bending, it's important to know, so lifting the legs, moving the thigh back. So I talked about all that, but here you'll have a real feeling of the thighs moving back because you'll have to balance, all right? So I'm starting with the feet forward, coming down like we did. You can use the blocks, and then take your feet to the wall and have a wide distance. So it's wider than our usual standing pose positions. And just notice my feet. On the outer edge of the feet, it's in line with the outer edge of the mat. Okay? Now, because I'm so close to the wall, I'm going to use these blocks first of all. Walk them forward. So I'm a little bit in a downward dog position, which is also some forward bending, right? So you're pressing your hands and you're moving the thighs to the wall. So here now, I can feel the sitting bones at the wall. Press the heels and lift the backs of the thighs up to release the shoulders, to release the upper chest. Now, press your toes down. Press into the front of the foot. Press into the heel. Lift the kneecap and move the front of the thigh, which is facing forward. Move that to the back of the thigh. Can you broaden the back of the thigh? And lift the back of the thigh. Okay, so that's the first position. If you didn't need the blocks, you could just use the hands for that position, straightening the arms. Okay, now we're going to take the blocks again, and you're going to turn the blocks down and bring the hands underneath the shoulders. So when you bring the hands underneath the shoulders, you're pressing the hands down, straightening the arms, moving the thighs back, moving the hips back, and lengthen forward. So you can do this also without the blocks. So you're pressing, and as you move the hips and thighs back, you're lengthening forward. Okay, so you can feel the direction of the legs. If you're not using that movement, you fall forward. So now I want you to come forward a little bit. All right, so we'll come back to that second position again. So your hands are underneath your shoulders. Press the hands down. If you need to use the blocks, use the blocks. Press down into the heel of the hand. And almost like you're scrubbing your fingers back. You're moving your fingers back in that direction, but you're not. You keep the fingers down, but pulling back. So slight pulling, and lengthen the trunk forward. Be in the feet, lifting the toes, lifting up through the kneecaps. Keep the inner thighs lifted. And then you're going to walk your hands back a little bit further, with or without the blocks, and then you'll bend your elbows. Just watch my elbows are moving back toward the wall. Forearms are parallel to one another. And then you're going to come on to the crown of the head. So still working with the legs, moving back toward the wall, lengthening the calf toward the heel. From the heel, press up into the hips, into the thighs, broadening the thighs, moving the inner thighs away from one another, and the fronts of the thighs toward the wall. Now, if your head is nowhere near the floor, so I'm going to take my feet a little bit closer, otherwise my head will not go where I want to show you. So you can come down onto the crown of the head, bring your arms back. And from here, you're pressing the hands down to lift the shoulders up away from the back of the head. Okay, so whatever position you're in, either the blocks or on the floor, the hands and that press of the hand, connecting to the elbows, connecting to the shoulders, is lifting the shoulders up away from the head. So you're not sinking the shoulders down like that. You keep lifting the shoulders up, and you're using the hands and the arms to do that. Okay, and then come out, walk your hands back, stabilize the legs, lengthen out. Take a few breaths, bring your hands onto your hips. Inhale, come up. Okay? And then step your feet in and walk your feet together. All right, so now we'll just sit down. We were practicing forward bends, but here I'll take you through one last forward bend, which will be Paschimottanasana. You can have your feet hips width apart. You can take the blocks in front of you. So this is for your head. All right, so now if you have tight hamstrings or you've been struggling with your forward bends, you definitely need to sit up on some height. So I've taken one blanket. You can take a couple blankets, whatever you feel that you need. And then take your feet hips width apart. And we'll use the bolster. So I'll show two different ways, on the floor, but then also on the floor with the bolster, but also with the chair. Okay, so you're coming forward. Your feet are activated, just like you were standing in Tadasana. So the feet are pressing through the inner and outer edges of the feet. The toes are spread, kneecaps are lifted, thighs are moving back, just like they were in Prasarita Padottanasana. And you're coming forward, lifting, lengthening through the abdominal area. And take your arms forward, rest your head. You can also take the bolster this way, if you have a bolster, and lengthen over that bolster and bring your head onto the bolster. This bolster is a little bit thick for that. So let me show you with the chair. So in Paschimottanasana, which this is, your legs are active. So they're moving down toward the floor. And if it's difficult to go forward, using a chair is a nice option so that you can come forward. I'm moving the chair a little bit away. I'm going to move these blocks. Moving it away a little bit because I don't want it so close and then I just bend down like so. So I'm moving it away so that there'll be some forward bending action. Think of a plane. A plane is taking off at the runway. There's this lift off. So you're lifting off here. You can take your hands onto the chair. So you're still getting that length. Thighs are descending, hips are descending. And then if you feel that you don't need to hold that, then you can just bring your arms onto the chair. If you're still hunched over, then you can use a bolster or something to help you get that lift so that you're still maintaining that length and you can come into a quiet, passive state. So just there, be there and breathe, taking whichever prop you needed, either the bolster across the legs with the blocks or higher height with the chair. And then come up. And to give you a little bit of relief for the hamstrings, you can cross the legs and then come forward. Rest your head. And then change the cross on the legs. We're not holding very long, but this is a sequence you can do on your own. Do holding longer. Some of these more quiet poses. And then come up. And then since we have the chair, we'll just end up with the chair and keep the blanket for the head and the neck. And take your legs up onto the chair and come into Savasana. So adjusting the blanket so it's coming right up to the shoulders. have the chair so that your knees are over your hips. If you have super long femur bones, you could take that bolster and bring it onto the chair, have a little bit more length, and then bring your arms out to the side. And just be there. Just let your back rest, let your legs rest. Softening, using the breath to help you release. Moving from the outside, moving inward. Keeping the breath quiet and passive. And I'll leave you here. Stay as long as you like. Namaste. Thank you for joining me. I hope you've had a good practice. I hope you learned a few things, how to keep yourself safe, how to lengthen, how to create an environment so you know if you're moving in the right direction. If you'd like to look at some other classes that will be doing some other things similar, but also a few other poses to round out your sequence, then take a look here. And until then, enjoy your practice, and I see you soon. Namaste.